Captain Schaaf's log, stardate 76424.7. This week aboard the USS TREKnological, one of my little cadets has been in the midst of her first sleep regression, and boy, am I tired. Thank goodness Captain Vactor and I have both set aside some time to trek the halls with episodes 17 and 18 of Star Trek Prodigy and boldly dad all the way to our next planetary destination. Engage. Welcome to TREKnological, a Star Trek Shakedown. We're a short-form podcast hosted by two hardworking dads who love to talk Trek. I'm Captain Schaaf, and with me each week, side by side in our co-captain's chairs on the bridge of the USS TREKnological, is Captain Vactor. How are you, Vactor?
Excellent, Captain Schaaf. After a couple weeks of sickness, I'm finally back to being 100%.
Yeah, you sound good. You sound like the Vactor that I know and love, not the congested, like subterranean creature that you were.
I'm feeling.
I'm so glad all of us are back to being healthy. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
We hope that our listeners are also healthy and dodging COVID, influenza A, and RSV. Please. Hope you're okay. But welcome. Each week, we will be traveling to a new planet to seek out new Trek news, as well as sharing our thoughts of each episode of Star Trek Prodigy Season 1. And as a bonus, we'll be recounting our adventures in fatherhood with our popular segment that we like to call Boldly Dadding. Now, without further ado, let's go ahead and set a course for the nearest planet, Maximum Warp.
Aye, sir. Course laid in.
Let's make like a tree and get out of here. Captain Vactor, meet me in the transporter room where we'll beam down to the planet's surface to search for some Trek news.
Aye, Biff. On my way.
I'm going to the dance. To the beam down. All right, Captain Vactor, let's scan the planet's surface for any sign of Trek news.
Oh, yeah, Captain Schaaf. I found some Trek news. Here's some of the highlights.
Ooh.
We have a $200,000 a month Florida rental home, which is a Star Trek fan's dream, Captain Schaaf. This is a very cool Star Trek themed house you want to check out in our show notes. That's very nice.
Okay.
There's
only 200,000
a month.
Yikes.
Star Trek Nemesis marked the end of an era 20 years ago, Captain Schaaf.
Wow, the 20th anniversary of Nemesis. Dang it.
Raise a glass of Romulan ale. Speaking of Nemesis, Captain Schaaf, did you know Patrick Stewart has a nice little thing on Tom Hardy's naked audition tape where he played a younger Jean-Luc Picard.
I read this article and it's something. It's something. Tom Hardy definitely wanted to make sure he stood out for this audition, and he certainly did stand out in a crowd.
Yeah. So that's just 3 of our very nice Star Trek news stories that we have in our show notes for all of our lovely listeners to check out.
Woohoo! Awesome. Yeah, if you want to check out the rest of it, just go to our show notes. We'll have them all there for you as hyperlinks. Make it real easy to click on, and you can just be taken right to the articles. With that, let's go ahead and switch gears, and it's time for our episode recap. Now, the past couple episodes I think we've been doing, or at least the last episode, we did a twofer episode, meaning that we covered 2 episodes of Prodigy instead of 1 because we moved to a bi-weekly schedule. So we're going to go through both of the most recent 2 episodes of Prodigy, starting with episode 17, which is called Ghost in the Machine. Now, this first aired on December 8th, and it was directed by Andrew Schmidt and written by Chad Quant. Now, I'm going to throw up a quick red alert because we do not want to spoil you, just in case you're not caught up on Prodigy. Maybe it's a show you're waiting for the season to finish. We'll give you that. But in the meantime, you could check out a previous episode of ours, or if you're a fan of Star Trek films, we would love for you to check out our Co-Captain's Commentary, which is a special feature that we do month to month, where we review and also just provide commentary in the moment while we watch the Star Trek films, starting with Motion Picture, Wrath of Khan, and Search for Spock. The next one on the docket is the Voyage Home, Star Trek 4, but we are probably, just because the December month is kind of a crazy month, there's a lot of stuff going on. We had a lot of sickness, and we also have the holidays to look forward to, so we're probably going to push that Co-Captain's Commentary to February 1st. But we're really excited for that. We're going to have a special guest. It's going to be fantastic. So check that out. But without further ado, now let's go ahead and get into the synopsis of Ghost in the Machine, which is: when the crew gets trapped in the holodeck, they aren't sure what's programmed or what's real. So, Vactor, what did you think of this episode?
I had a lot of fun with this episode, Shoff. This is, the holodeck episodes of TNG were always some of my favorites as a kid, because it's that danger room from the X-Men. It's that fantasy of, hey, I can go in a room and any, story that I want, anything I want to relive or live out, I can, whatever my heart desires. So anytime there's a holodeck storyline, I'm always interested. But this one where they got trapped in the holodeck, it was a kind of a cool noir mystery where the crew was going around trying to figure out what's going on. So I thought this one was a lot of fun. And I always look at these episodes through the lens of, okay, if I was an 8-year-old boy, what would I be thinking? And I would probably be loving this show right now. This episode in particular, Ghost in the Machine, I thought was just a lot of fun. What did you think, Captain Shaw?
The way you worded it, saying it was like X-Men's danger room.
Yeah,
I never even considered that, but that's actually really brilliant, and I completely agree with that 100%. So that's a really nice way to put it for the holodeck. I love holodeck episodes, unless it's like a TNJ thing and they're going to doing some like not Peter Pan, like a Robin Hood thing. Like, I don't like when that kind of stuff for holodeck stuff, but I like the Dixon Hill, like when Captain Picard is like a gangster or a private detective or something like that, like a PI and whatever, like that stuff's fun. The noir stuff is fun. Deep Space Nine, when they had that like nightclub that they were going to, that was great. When Data was using the holodeck to sort of learn what comedy is and stuff like that.
Yes,
it's a great opportunity to get off the ship, but do so in like a completely fantastical fashion. So this episode really spared no expense. And honestly, at this point, it's a Star Trek trope to have a holodeck-centric episode. Right. So Prodigy needed it, and they sure did get it. There were elements that worked for me and elements that didn't. But I think my favorite part was seeing Murph be like a lounge singer in like a jazzy club, the Key Club. And I wanted to ask you, because you know more about it's D. Bradley Baker, right?
Yeah, yes.
Did he sing too? Did he sing that?
That I'm not 100%, but it wouldn't surprise me. A lot of times when these voice actors are able to do so many different things with their voices, they're usually good singers also. So I can't be 100% sure, but if he did sing, I would not be surprised. I
mean, I am a very unsuccessful voice actor, but but I can definitely sing. So that your theory holds true.
Yeah.
So far holds true.
Nice.
What was your favorite of the holodeck? Because it was all based on their own personal holodeck adventures. So, and they all started to bleed into one another. Was there one of the adventures that you resonated with the most? Like, if you were to go in the holodeck, which one would you have probably been more likely to attend?
Probably the crime. Like, I'm not into necessarily pirate ships or things of that nature, but the gritty crime noir stuff is usually up my alley. So, and that was when, I think that was when the color left, right? Like, it went black and white. That was probably the one that I would most gravitate towards if I was in the holodeck.
And listeners, if you're listening to us on like a podcast catcher or whatever, I really tried on the artwork for this episode to make the top half of the artwork be black and white to sort of pay homage to that. So that was just me like trying to like take the graphic design and sort of influence the theme of it and give it kind of a cool.
Well done, Chuck.
Cool thing. Thank you. But yeah, I agree with you. That's probably the most fun. I also really would have liked to seen more of Zero's stuff where she's like a part of a secret society that is given a case to solve. Like, I thought that was really cool. I would have liked to have seen more of that. But ultimately, I thought this was a great episode. I actually think this was the better episode than the one that followed, in my personal opinion. But they definitely, this is a show that really relies on viewers watching it consistently.
Right.
Like, you can't just pick up Prodigy in the middle.
It's stacks.
It won't make sense. You really have to be starting it from the first episode and following it all the way through. And this episode, if we're moving on to episode 18, is no exception. Did you have any other thoughts you wanted on 17 before we moved on to 18?
No, just a lot of fun. And like I said, anytime there's a holodeck story, that was when I was a kid, anytime a Next Generation episode came up and it was a holodeck, I was like, yes, that was because there's two Star Trek technologies. I don't think I've ever shared this with you that as a kid blew my mind. Number one was the holodeck, because when I heard that idea that, it could be anything you imagine, like I could be in any storyline, I could be in anything, that just blew my mind. So that was number one. Number two, the replicators. Any like dish, that was, as a kid, before I saw Star Trek, that was a technology that I would create scenarios in my head. Oh, what if there was a machine that I can just type in any order that I want and it will create whatever I want? So when I saw the replicators for the first time, my mind was blown.
All right. Quick question then.
Yes.
If we had replicators right now, like it just happened to be in your office, and you could pick one thing that you could have right now in the moment, what would you be replicating?
100%. It would be A&W root beer, because I came into this episode very thirsty, and Captain Choff can see my drink is empty right now.
It sure is.
And A&W root beer is my favorite drink of all time. If I could have any drink for the rest of my life, it would be A&W root beer. So that would be what I would replicate right now. A tall glass of beer.
Do you go root beer float as well?
I've done that from time to time. I'm not a huge ice cream in the drink fan, but the root beer of it all, the flavor of the root beer will do anything. It will overcome any flavor. So I'll do that from time to time.
I love that. That's great.
How about Captain Shaw?
I'm pretty hungry right now, but I gotta say I'm kind of craving something that's really not healthy. I would be replicating a Mexican pizza right now from Taco Bell.
I was just about to say that. And for listeners,
that sounds so good right now. Like, I had a really healthy dinner. I had I made, what was it? Kidney bean meatballs with roasted broccoli and like a corn roasted red pepper slaw. Ooh. It was very tasty, and but totally gourmet. It was a Green Chef meal. But it was a vegan meal, so it just not enough. Like, I need more. Like, I need protein or whatever. So like now I'm craving like red meat, and so I just want like a Mexican pizza, like to just like devour.
Thanks a lot, Chuff, because now I'm craving a Mexican pizza. That is not only is A&W my favorite drink of all time, but a Taco Bell Mexican pizza is my one favorite food item of all time.
You could wash it down with an A&W root beer. It'd be okay. But if you're going to go to Taco Bell, you got to go Baja Blast. I mean, there's no way around it. So.
Yeah.
All right. Well, with that, let's go ahead and switch over to the episode 18, which is called Mindwalk. And the red alert exists for this one as well. We're not going to play the sound effect again, but if you haven't seen this episode, that's your warning. First aired on December 15th, which was yesterday, and it was directed by Sung Shin and written by Julie Benson and Shauna Benson, hopefully related. The synopsis of this episode is: desperate to warn Starfleet of their dilemma, a daring experiment goes awry as Dahl inadvertently swaps minds with a Starfleet vice admiral, aka Janeway. Whoa. So, Vactor, so when we talked earlier today on Discord, you were saying you really liked this episode. Like, I would guess, based on the 2 episodes, this was your favorite of the 2.
I actually liked both equally, but
whatever.
This one was fantastic, Shaw. I really want to hear what you did not like about this episode, because as I was watching,
it's actually super specific. It's very, very specific. And just the fact that it was in the episode kind of it causes the episode for me to not be a good one, because I mean, okay, this is all fake science. This is all pseudoscience, right? Like, we don't have warp speed. We don't have starships flying in space. Like that, I mean. Obviously, we have, like, space shuttles and whatnot. But I don't understand, or I can't wrap my mind around the idea that 2 people could be floating outside the ship while in warp speed, mind you, in a warp like bubble of sorts. Like, to me, that is bafflingly impossible as far as Star Trek goes, because warp speed is a very fast speed. How exactly are they just getting out of the ship and floating, and not just like immediately the ship's just like passing them by, like that to me was too much. Like, the only way I could justify it in my head was there was some kind of like, the bubble is not just it's not just like them reaching the same speed at the same time. There's like an atmosphere around them in that regard too. But and I guess that could be like their shields, but I don't know. It was a lot. So
just
to
that?
Me, it was a big leap. Even for Star Trek, it was a big leap. And we've never seen anybody do anything like this on Star Trek before. So there's not really like a precedent that says it can be done or it can't be done. But to me, it seems really improbable and a big leap, both literally and figuratively. So,
and that specific point is what ruined it for you.
Yeah, it derailed it. As soon as I knew that they were going to jump outside the ship, I was like, "Are you kidding me?
Dang.
Do we even care about physics? Like, at this point, I don't know. Like,
that was kind of the way that I approached it. I didn't care about physics. I was having too much fun with the body swap of Janeway and what's his name, Dahl. Yeah, and the different actors having to play the other characters. I'm a sucker for that. I think we talked about it on Strange New Worlds when Spock and T'Pring switched bodies.
Yep.
I'm a sucker for body swap comedy and the other actor doing their impression of the other actor. I always love that. So Janeway getting to do like Catherine Mulgrew's chops, her acting chops of playing the other character I just had a lot of fun in this episode. This was fun, just like the holodeck episode. So I was laughing. I was laughing the whole time.
I actually was really impressed with how much the voice actor who does Dahl was able to sort of like channel his inner Janeway.
Yeah. Right.
And I thought it was really fun how much Kate Mulgrew was able to let her hair down and be casual and be like a teenager, essentially, like Dahl. Like, I would have loved to witness them in the booth doing some of that stuff. Like, that would have been fun. And after seeing their very successful interpretations of each other, obviously they had the support of great artists and animators that could convey like the body language and accentuate the movements depending on the words being said. But it made me want to see it in live action. Like I would have loved to have seen like Kate Mulgrew like really get down and as like a teenager and stuff. Like that would have been a lot of fun.
Yeah, it does suck that at this point she's a little bit older, she's a little bit heavier, and she doesn't fit like the model of Janeway that we see on the screen. But she's a great actress, no matter what I've seen her in, and I've loved her since Voyager. And my wife,
she's amazing.
That's actually her favorite captain. Now, my wife has not seen every Trek show, but the ones that I've shown her, she gravitated towards Janeway immediately. So that endears her to me a little bit more because my wife loves her. But yeah, I just had a ton of fun with both of these episodes, and in this one, it was the body swap stuff that made me laugh.
Yeah, no, it's great stuff. I think that this body swap, obviously, it's a fun, conventional like way to do storytelling, but also it's a great way to endear the characters to each other. So Janeway gets this unique perspective of the rest of the crew now that she didn't have before. And now Dal understands a little bit more of what's going on the other ship. And it's just, it makes me really interested and excited for what's to come. Mm-hmm. And obviously we only have 2 episodes left of the first season, but what a season it was. I kind of wish that they went to a bigger episode count with other shows like Strange New Worlds, Lower Decks. Like to me, if they can justify 20 episodes for Prodigy, how come they can't do more for, in my opinion, more popular shows?
Right.
You know, like, not to say Prodigy isn't popular, but I would say if you were to stack them and rank them in terms of popularity with mainstream audiences, you're going to find that Prodigy is lower on the list.
And I think it's a lot of people see that and say, or see the animation style and say, oh, that's for kids, I'm not going to watch it. But as we've gotten recommendations to watch it, and as we've watched it ourselves, I think there's a lot here for adults to enjoy, as well as younger viewers. And like I said, I wish my son was a little bit older so that I could share these moments with him. But I think in the future, Prodigy is probably a show that I will show him at some point.
Yeah. I have a weird relationship with Prodigy in the sense that there are times I feel like it's too violent or too graphic to be a children's show. I know I think it's like 7, like you have to be like, that's what like their rating system is, like 7 and up basically. And I'm just like, a 7-year-old watching all of this where the stakes are so dire, they could explode at any moment, all of them be dead.
Yeah.
They're floating out in space, they could suffocate. Like, I just think like, I don't know about this, but at the same time, I think about it if I was a kid and this was my show, at like the way that I hold and regard the 1990s X-Men cartoon or the 1990s Spider-Man cartoon, those two, or even the real Ghostbusters cartoon from the 80s and 90s. Like, if I had this show then, it would probably be one of my favorite shows as a kid. So as an adult, I can still appreciate it, but I definitely feel like it's not my jam 100%. So, but since we're talking about kids and stuff, why don't we talk about our kids?
Yeah.
So we're going to go ahead and shut things down on the episode discussion, but we thank you so much and put it out there to the fans. This episode 18, if you can prove to me on the science of this episode and tell me why this is okay, that they're just floating around while in warp speed and it's totally fine, great.
Yeah.
Even within the Star Trek, like, I know it's pseudoscience. If you can explain it to me in Star Trek terms why it's okay, I would love to hear that. So change my mind. Prove me wrong. Yeah. I want you to. All right. So with that, we're going to go ahead and switch over to our weekly segment where we share some stories and lessons learned during our past week as dads to young kids, which we call Boldly Dadding.
Yeah.
Co-Captain's Log Supplemental. If you haven't heard about Anchor from Spotify, it's the easiest way to make an interplanetary podcast with everything you need all in one sector. Let us explain.
Anchor has tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone, computer, or tricorder.
When hosting on Anchor, you can transmit your podcast on all hailing frequencies to each of the 4 quadrants on listening platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and much more.
It's everything you need to synthesize a podcast in one place. And best of all, Anchor is totally free. No gold-pressed latinum needed.
Download the Anchor app or boldly go to anchor.fm to get started. All right, so boldly dadding. Now I'm going to go ahead and hand the reins over to Vactor because I'd like to hear about his dad moment or moments from the past couple of weeks. And just how's everything going as a dad, dude?
Yeah, these past 2 weeks have been pretty stressful for me, but 2 things popped up in my mind this week as I was thinking about my son and being a father. I was listening to a YouTube video, and they were talking about financial things and passing down generational wealth to your son and his son and his son. And the person, I don't know who the quote was attributed to because the person who said it didn't know who the quote was attributed to, but they said they were watching something where the person said, "Do you know your great-grandfather's name?" And the person paused and said, "No, I don't." And the other person said, "That's because he didn't leave you anything. He didn't pass down any wealth. If he had left you something, you would probably know your great-grandfather's name." And I thought about it myself. I don't know my great-grandfather's name. I know my grandfather's name. I don't know my great-grandfather's name. So that's something that I was thinking about. I want my son to know his great-grandfather. And I also want to pass down not only wealth, but knowledge to my son. And we've talked about that on previous Boldly Daddings. I want my son to have a great financial education so that he can build wealth and also receive, his own wealth in it and be able to make money without having to work so hard for it. And I think that wasn't necessarily passed down to me through the years. And I want him to start out with a good relationship with money. I don't want it to be a taboo. I don't want it to be a thing where he's afraid to talk about money. Those are all things that I've been thinking about this week. So that's one. I want him to know his great-grandfather's name. If you're listening, Ezra, if you're listening to this podcast, his name is Alvin Johnson, Alvin Jack Johnson. Alvin. Also, another thing that I was thinking about, and I talked to Shoff a little bit about this in our Discord chat that we had, but he said to save it for the show. So now is the time. I've been feeling impatient lately with my son. And the thing is, he's a toddler right now. He's less than 2 years old. He turns 2 in March. We're recording this in December of 2022. I want him to be at an age where I can share things with him as far as entertainment. So television, movies, video games, comic books. I want to have a conversation with him and him be able to tell me, hey, this is my favorite thing. This is my favorite character, movie, whatever it is. And I just can't do that yet with him. And I know I'm going to look back on these days and be like, man, I can't remember a time when he wasn't necessarily talking to me and talking my ear off about whatever show or movie or TV show. But I just want to have those moments. And I see other dads having them, and I see other TV shows and movies where the dads they're bonding with their sons and liking the entertainment that their sons are liking. So that was on my mind this week of, man, I wish time would speed up a little bit and I could get to that point where we're almost like peers, where we're sharing entertainment back and forth. But I want to have that bond with my son that we can, and it's not necessarily television and movies. Like I said, it could be music, it could be sports, whatever it is, just something that we can both, latch on to. We can both have a conversation about art. So that's what I've been thinking about this week.
Question for you.
Yes.
Because our listeners might not know this, and I know it's in the works. I hope you don't mind if I mention it. I know it's not ready yet, but you are recording a separate podcast.
Yes.
With your dad.
Yes.
And I guess I think this would be a really good topic to bring up with your dad, because maybe he felt the same way when you were the baby, when you were like the toddler, and he was the young dad, wanting to share his passions and feeling impatient. I think that like to get his insight might be kind of interesting, and I wouldn't be surprised if there were some similarities in that regard.
That's a great idea, and I'm going to add it. I have a little
he's like, I'm writing this
show
down.
notes page of my dad's podcast.
I just think like that would be really an interesting experience, not to have with your dad, but also because you can have a very unique conversation now that wouldn't have never been possible otherwise. And I think that what he'll probably say, or what I think I would probably believe, is that even though you're feeling impatient for what is to come, I think once that point reaches, you're going to be missing the times right now.
Yeah. That's what
So it's always a grass greener on the other side type thing.
Yeah.
So in that essence, I think the best solution is just to live in the moment, because we're always going to be wishing for more time that we didn't get, or
and it's a weird situation to be in, because I think a lot of people don't cherish the present, and then they look back on it and say, man, I wish I had done this, or I wish I had spent more time.
True.
And I think you and I are both in that moment right now, and we are aware of the moment we are in, as well as looking forward to the future and thinking about looking back and saying, oh, I remember those times. So we are both trying to be as present as possible. And I think it's going to be interesting once we get to those points, because I know I'm going to look back and say, man, where did the time go? Because even now, where it's almost been 2 years since he was born, and I'll look back at pictures from a year ago, and his face has changed, his body has changed, and it's just kind of amazing the amount of changes that happen in these first few years of our children's lives are changes that we're not going to see again, for on this level, on this scale, the year-to-year change, the overall changes. Once they get to a certain point, they kind of level off like we have, and our year-to-year changes are not as drastic. So it's just going to be interesting to see as our children develop, both of ours.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I can tell you, I usually joke whenever, my daughter Emily is 2.5, and Sage is just about 8 months. They don't, like, there's been a whole lot of sleeping issues where they don't sleep, long enough, or like their naps aren't long enough, or they're waking up early. And I joke and I say, I wish you were a teenager right now, because teenagers sleeping. Teenagers do not wake up early. They sleep in. I remember growing up as a kid, and if it was the weekend and I didn't have to wake up for school the morning or whatever, I was sleeping until like 11. There would be some days I would sleep until 1. I would miss breakfast entirely. And obviously, like, if you have chores and stuff, I get it. Like, you're going to wake up, whatever. But I think the only thing that made me wake up any bit early on Saturdays was Saturday morning cartoons. That got me. I was ready and alert for whatever show I was waiting for that in the morning. But I think about that, and I'm like, all these sleepless nights, all this waking up in the middle of the night, all scrambling to get stuff done during nap time, because otherwise you're occupied. It's like, in that sense, I'm impatient for the future, because I was like, we need a break. We need a break. Go to bed. So I feel for you, but I think you bring up some great points. And I also hope that one day when I'm the great grandfather, I hope that I've left a powerful legacy that way too.
Yeah.
For my dad moments, we've been really struggling with finding a nanny / like a babysitter. I might have said on the last podcast a couple weeks ago, our nanny quit. She needed a full-time job. We only had her part-time. So it's not like she was like, wasn't working out or like we didn't like fire her or anything. And she wasn't like unhappy. It was just a situation where she needed something that was full-time. She came to us as a part-time thing. She was doing like part-time music lessons, and the music lessons aspect of stuff sort of dried up. So she really needed more income on a regular basis. And we weren't ready or prepared to bring her on full-time. We didn't need that much help in that regard. We just needed a couple days a week. So it just didn't work out. So we lost that support, which is tough. That happened just before we all got sick. So that was not good timing. Then a neighbor was helping us a little bit with some sitting and stuff, and but we decided we weren't going to go that route. We are still interviewing nannies. The nanny just came by the other day. Nice. and hung out with Emily for like maybe 30 minutes to an hour. But Emily didn't take to her. She did not. After she left, we asked Emily what she thought, and she said that she didn't like her. So we're not going to bring her back. And the lady was very, very sweet, very nice, but for some reason Emily didn't like her. I think it was because she was a little bit older, and Emily's used to nannies / sitters being sort of not teenagers, but maybe in like the 20s. Oh. Just an age that's more playful and fun, I think. So that just didn't work out. So we're in the process of trying to find another sitter, another nanny of some kind, so we can get some help during the week. Obviously, I'm working from home 100%, so it can be a challenge wearing different hats at the same time, being a dad, being a husband, and being a worker bee all at the same time. It's not like I can kind of tune out those other things while I'm at an office. When the baby cries, I hear it. When Emily's calling out for dada, I hear it. I can't just like tune it out. I have to open up my door and check and see what's going on. So that takes me away from my work, and it's tough. Anybody who knows that struggle knows it's tough. Anybody who has to go into work and misses out on that, it's still tough. I'm not saying one is worse or one is better. We all equally have it as a challenging time. On the brighter side, Sage, my 8-month-old, said dada for the first time. So I'm very thrilled about that. Yeah. She went through like a slew of like 4 to 5 days of saying dada consistently, at least once during the day. And it was just so cool because she's even like, I don't want to say smarter, but she's even faster with her development than Emily was. Emily, I think she was like 10 or 11 months when she first said dada. So it's just so great that she got the word out. I love that. It feels so good as a dad to hear that. She's on the tail end, it seems like, of a sleep regression. But for the past week, it's been a real challenge. She's wasn't taking naps for longer than like 30 minutes. And then at nighttime, she wasn't going more than maybe an hour of laying down, and then she would wake back up again. And my wife has been managing it like a true super mom. But there's definitely been some times, and a couple nights ago I was helping out, and I basically had to hold Sage and hold her on me, and she sleeps better when she's sleeping on you. And she slept for 3 hours on me while I was sitting on the couch, and this was at like, I don't know, 4 o'clock in the morning. And she slept on me till just about 8. No, I'm sorry. It was like 4:30 or whatever. Just slept to almost 8. So it was, it's just tough, man. And like you were saying, like you're impatient for what's to come. In that way, I'm impatient for what's to come. Cause like I love Sage being a baby, but at the same time, I'm like ready for her to be walking around. So she's a little less needy in that regard.
Yes.
You know,
I remember that with Ezra. I remember actually that's one of those things where I look back now and I'm like, dang, I remember when he couldn't stand up. I remember when he couldn't walk, and now it's like, oh, he's walking everywhere.
Yeah, yeah, and like in the moment, it feels like it's going to take forever, but it's such a fleeting thing. Like these things are not. They're just phases, and so like the best thing I think I can do for myself is just remind myself it's a phase. It's not forever. It's a phase, and just like hold that space until the things change. I will say, Sage is sitting up very well on her own. Yay. She was like sitting up by herself unassisted for at least like 30 minutes earlier today. We were playing with some toys of hers and stuff. So like she's really coming along. She's not crawling yet, but she'll be there soon, I'm sure. And the only other things I wanted to bring up, just a couple of fun stuff. Emily is talking so much more, and I cannot wait. I really, Vactor, I cannot wait for Ezra's like vocab to just explode. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
Like any day now, it's going to happen. And, you know, he's, excuse me, you said he's going to be 2 in March, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like from 2 to like 2.5, there's just like a word explosion.
Yeah.
And so I'm so excited for what's to come for you and for your wife.
Yeah.
Because Emily is just so outspoken. She says so much. Granted, she's very, very shy in public, but when she's home in her element, because she's a homebody, she says so much stuff, and funny things too. She's really very funny. She loves to listen to Coco Melon songs, and she loves to like watch Pete the Cat and Peppa Pig and Coco Melon and Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood. Those are the kind of some of the shows that she likes to watch. But she knows that she's raised vegan vegetarian. So the only meat she's had, I think, probably in her life was some turkey.
Ooh.
The other day for Thanksgiving, which she liked, but we're kind of just letting her decide what she wants to eat and stuff. But anyways, she calls me an eat meter instead of a meat eater. So I think that's funny. I'm an eat meter.
Yeah.
And when she sings Old MacDonald Had a Farm, she says It'll Drummer Had a Farm. That's how she says Old MacDonald is It'll Drummer. No matter what animal is supposed to come first, it's always pig for her. You know,
yeah.
In fact, if you say another animal, she yells pig at the top of her lungs. So you have to talk about pig. She likes London Bridge is Falling Down, Head and Shoulders, Knees and Toes. She's just loves to sing. She loves to read books. And as much as we've been anti-screen time, we really have not raised her with a television. She's only had access to a television for maybe just the past year and not much, very much regulated. More so recently since she was sick, because when you have a sick toddler, like, what are you going to do? Right?
Yeah.
They just need to sit still and chill out and rest. And that is certainly a very good way to do it. And plus, if everyone else is sick, what are you going to, like, you have no energy.
Right.
So like, it's a great option. But we found that as long as it's the right shows and not just like any old show, something that's too stimulating, as long as it's a show that's sort of like mindful of children and is presenting good lessons, then it only serves to enhance, at least for in Emily's case, it's improving her vocab. It's making her in many ways more joyful, and she's singing songs where she wasn't before. So like I think it's really helping in many ways. So in a regulated capacity, screen time can be good.
Nice. Left
unchecked, not good. But when you're making the right choices for your children, it'll show through. Nice. So yeah, that's kind of what I've been going through.
That's amazing, Shoff, and I can't wait to see how all of our children progress.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. We got to get our kids to meet sometime.
Yeah.
All right, folks. Well, hey, with that, we're going to go ahead and say thank you so much for listening. We are on Instagram and Twitter and TikTok and YouTube and anywhere you get your podcast. But if you're looking for us on social media, you can find us at TREKNOPOD. And we really would hope that you would subscribe to us on YouTube. If you're watching us on YouTube, and by watching, this episode has no video, but if you're listening to us on YouTube or checking us out on TikTok, reach out to us. Let us know. Of course, like the video, but leave us a comment. We really appreciate the engagement, and we're pretty good about responding right away. So it would be awesome if you did that. And then if you enjoyed what you heard today, we don't like to bring this up any earlier than now because we want to prove to you that we have a fun show and something worth listening to. So if you enjoyed what you've heard today, we would really appreciate if you would go ahead and let us know with a 5-star rating and review. If you haven't already done so, we'd love for you to subscribe to the show. Sometimes the podcast catcher you're listening on says follow, not subscribe. It's all the same thing. But we would really, really love that. And then if you'd share our podcast, maybe you know somebody else who's also a Trekkie or a Trekker. It's all one and the same here. But if you have friends and family who enjoy Star Trek, then they might enjoy our podcast too. And really the best thing you could do for us is just share the word. So thank you so much. Now in a couple of weeks, so like I said, we've moved to more of a bi-weekly schedule and we're going to see that through until the end of 2022, which is rapidly approaching. Hey. But in 2 weeks, we're going to have our final recap, review, and goodbye to Star Trek Prodigy Season 1, as well as to the year 2022. And I'll tell you what, 2022 has been a challenging year, so I am going to very happily say adios so that we can welcome 2023 in a big way. Yeah. So with that, Captain Vactor, our mission of the week is complete. Schaffen Vactor here, to beam up.
Live long and prosper.